A couple videos back, I told you that I was going to give you more details on the model railroad behind me. Oh, by the way, it's nighttime over there right now, so shh. I'm also going to tell you more about the man who got it started, my father. So, let's get going. My name is Jonathan, and I'm a caregiver for my wife Lynn, who has a permanent brain injury. Things are different now, but we're doing the best that we can. Join us as we experience the Lynn life. The best way to probably do this would be to start at the beginning, kind of go back in time to when my father first started building his little model railroad, and it happened around 1990 when he first retired. And I've dug up some old photographs, and let's just kind of go through those, and we'll take a look at the railroad as it first existed when he first started building. Now here's some photographs of the original railroad when it existed in my parents' home. And it was actually in one of my sister's bedrooms. You can see the wallpaper. He never had a backdrop. And originally he had a trolley that went down the main street and circled around. It was elevated and went over the yard and went back to the street again. I removed that, but I started using pieces of it in other areas of the model railroad. So I did make some changes there. So I no longer have a trolley. Some of the girders for the elevated portion there are now being used in my subway. I actually have some video footage here of him operating the little trolley for my niece when she was a little girl.
Where she's coming, I told her I'd make her a little figure that would be her.
Oh, wow.
Pretend. Just pretend.
Here it comes.
Now it stops at the station.
Now it got on. See?
Yeah, you got on.
People got on, right?
Now the station that you saw the little trolley stop at still exists in another portion of my model railroad. Now to relocate this model railroad from my parents' house about an hour and a half away to where I now live and get it into the room where it exists now, I had to remove most of the track in the yard and then cut the model railroad in half with a reciprocating saw, and then move the both halves out of that room into a van and bring it here and reassemble it on the model railroad. It was kind of scary for a lot of family members, but I believed in my abilities, and I was successful. These are some of the original buildings that he built from scratch that now exist on the current railroad. He preferred building these buildings from scratch, using cardstock, illustration board, pieces of plastic, any spare parts he could find to build them. He also liked incorporating people's names into buildings, and this is a good example. These are two shops named after my sisters, Susie and Jennifer. Now, these buildings weren't all completed, so I completed them and I started adding lighting to them that he hadn't had before. And when I did, I found something very interesting in this particular building. This one here. Now, when I turn the room lights off, you can see that there's a silhouette of a very curvy woman in that one window. And I had no idea that it existed until I started adding the lighting. Now, this is his firehouse or engine company number 23. The interior on this was not complete, so I actually built the interior. There are beds, and there's some people up there, and there is a fire pole that goes down. But the interesting thing about this is his use of numbers. Nothing was an accident. He liked to only apply numbers that mean something to him. Now, I believe in this case, both numbers, the address, number 36, and engine company number 23, represent ages, his ages. 36 was how old he was when I was born, and I believe 23 was the age he was when he finished art school after serving in the Army in World War II. He went to art school in New York City, and he was 20 years old in 1945. So I believe 23 was how old he was when he finished school. Now, above this section of the layout is an airplane. Now, growing up, my father had an extensive model airplane collection. He loved model airplanes, and this is one of the few survivors of that. So I put it above the railroad. It's a Navy trainer, and it's appropriate for the era. And in another area of my house, I have this right here. Something else my father built years ago. It's a static, display model of a train. It's an 040 switcher. There's a boxcar and a caboose, and there's also a hopper car that I have in my railroad room. He made this quite a few years ago. It is literally falling apart under its own weight. I have plans to completely restore this. Maybe next winter. It would be something definitely over the winter that I will do. And I want to build a better support system so that the wheels don't fall off of it under its own weight. I need to build something a little bit stronger, some kind of a support system underneath the locomotives and the cars and things like that, so that it stays together. I've said this before. My father was an excellent modeler, not necessarily a great engineer when it came to these things. He was more interested in modeling it and making it look real. But these are very detailed. It doesn't run. It's nothing like that. It's just a display piece. It's made mostly of card stock, like cardboard and things like that. A lot of balsa wood and anything else he could find that would work. He has some figures. I believe they're all paper mache. An interesting thing to note is that the caboose has a complete interior, complete with bunks, desk, lantern, even a calendar on the wall. And also, there's the numbers again, 179. Not sure yet what that represents, but I'm sure it represents something. But a little easier is 99 on the engine. That is the year that my son and my nephew were born. Now, the current railroad is set in early 1940s, the war era, and the reason is this is a portrait of my father when he served in the Army during World War II, and this is a portrait of his battalion taken in April of 1944 in Fort Knox, Kentucky. This is him in the photograph, and he was a gunner in a Sherman tank, and he served in the 20th Armored Division. So I think that's gonna about do it, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about the origins of what was once my father's world and is now my world. And we'll see you next time on The Lynn Life.